And we're back. Is this last trade Signal versus Noid? What is this again?
Wrong show. We are live though. We're live for another stream of Signal versus Noise. We stream every Tuesday and Thursday, 12:30 Eastern. This week we got Liam and Michael joining us. Gentlemen, I just saw you 2 days ago for Tuesay's episode. What's changed since then? How are you guys doing?
Price did some nice things. If anybody's interested in Bitcoin, so we're good there.
The price of groceries at Mamdani's grocery store or something else?
I guess the price of everything where we're going, is going up. Unless you subscribe to the one BTC is one BTC, but I don't think this is a show for those folks.
Everything's gone up. Everything's accelerating. We're truly in the singularity right now.
I don't know if I believe that, but we can talk about it and once we get there. So the first topic for today is Bessent flags bigger Treasury buyback. So for those of you who are unaware, yesterday the US Treasury increased their buyback of US Treasuries from a maximum of $2 billion to a minimum of $4 billion. And what that meant was bond yields were spiking to levels not seen over 30 years. And so we were monitoring the 10, 20-year, and 30-year US Treasury rates. You can see on this chart here that the long end has been blown out over the past months and years because there's just a lot of questioning about the government's fiscal position, geopolitical uncertainty. And so bond investors, the bond vigilantes, are calling the bluff. And so the US Treasury decided to increase the intervention yesterday, or at least announce their intention to increase intervention, I believe going live in early September. And then pretty much the bond yields erased everything that happened in the past 24 hours because yields are back to, not entirely back to, but close to being back to where they were after the announcement. And so what we've seen is Bitcoin, gold, other assets have been rallying, signaling the fact that there is going to be more intervention to come. There's going to be more liquidity entering the system because this system, the collateral that underpins the system is going quite awry. So gentlemen, what do you think? Is it signal? Is it noise? What are your thoughts on the Bitcoin price move in the past 24 hours as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about this with gold's breakout a few weeks ago and sitting close to $4,600 an ounce. What's most interesting here, I think, is that we're at this real inflection point where allocators of all shapes and sizes, I don't think, can not pay attention to hard assets and how do they protect themselves from a portfolio construction to an individual's household portfolio. Inflation from a pure visceral perspective, going to the grocery store, buying anything, all the way to looking at equities and just insanity in these markets while we see the debt at all-time high, we see consumer debt at all-time high. I think we're going to be in this new paradigm, and this is just the marking of it with the Treasury and the yield curve control taking place.
Yeah, this is a continued step towards yield curve control and untrue, unfair markets around bond yields too. The fact that the Treasury and the Fed own so much of their own U.S. government debt is just a testament to how their artificial demand is. I think, Jackson, you were talking about it the other week about how Japan owns over 50% of their long-term debt, and I see something similar probably happening here with the U.S. I think that the fact is that bondholders aren't getting compensated for the risk that they're taking on. The U.S. government is going further and further into debt and doing things that many people wouldn't necessarily agree or look to finance, whether it's the Iran war or many of the wasteful spending in both the federal government all the way down to the local municipalities, which will be bailed out over time too. And so I think that, this headline, it was jarring to see that the market didn't even buy Bessent's bluff. And I think that that's just a continuation of that people think that there will need to be more bailouts over time as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think the past 2 days have been massive signal because this is essentially what people have been waiting for years now. People have been talking about whether it's the Japanese yen and the JGB market or it's the US Treasury. People have been monitoring very closely for the past 3 or 4 years as rates have gone much higher post great financial crisis for something like this to happen. And so, Liam, to your point, I really think the most important aspect about all of this is the fact that everything, the intervention that was announced yesterday has pretty much already unwound. And that is just signaling the fact that there's going to be much, much more here to come. Because ultimately, when you have the collateral dysfunctioning in the manner that it is, the only real reaction or the only real tool in the toolkit for the administration at this point is to do everything you can to restore confidence in that market and assure investors that they're going to backstop the bond market. And so if you actually scroll back up, Nick, I really liked the quote here. It just shows the level of gaslighting we're getting, because Bessent is quoted here saying, "We have a big toolkit, so we'll see." And to show that we believe the yields do not reflect the underlying fundamentals. So it's kind of ironic, and it really is, don't believe your lying eyes, because the yields, when they are blowing out, are in fact reflecting the underlying fundamentals, that this is unsustainable, that there's no way that this debt will actually get paid back without destroying the value of the currency. So they're telling you one thing, but they're doing another. It's the classic playbook here, and I would definitely continue to monitor this. This is a very good sign for Bitcoin and gold, and really all risk on assets, in my opinion.
Great title for this episode. Don't believe your lying eyes.
Thank you. All right, Nick, we did the work for you. Should we move on to the next topic? I know we got a quick one today.
Let's do it.
So OpenAI pacing model developments as models grow stronger. Liam, can you tee us off here? You're a little bit closer to this one than I am.
Yeah, there are two aspects to this. So OpenAI has seen a bunch of things over the past few weeks, whether it's breaching Hugging Face and the models getting out of their containment, to just the continued development of the cyber capabilities that have gone in and hacked and got out of the sandboxes of a lot of these frontier model a lot of these frontier companies. And so, Nick, if you go to the next tab, they're essentially saying that they're pausing the I think it's recursive learning of the post training of models in order to on the frontier of their cyber capabilities in order to make sure that they can actually ensure that the models don't get out and hack other systems. I'll go first here too. I think I'm going to go with this is a little bit of noise, because I think that they also don't quite have as much of the actual model compute in order to post train all of these models and really get it to the level that they want. And so they are blaming just the fact that these models are so advanced that they can't even be controlled by humans as a reason why that they're potentially slowing down. But I think that a lot of the reason could be economic too.
What was the core where we started with Qwen and then went here? What was the tie?
And then the other aspect is of it too is just the fact that Qwen has come out with an open source model that can be run on your local laptop of 32 gigs. It is very close to the frontier. I've downloaded it and tried to use it a bit. It is essentially the same level as like Opus 4.6, and it's very interesting to use too, just because it thinks a little bit differently than Claude or OpenAI. And so I think it's just another testament that a lot of what we're seeing is acceleration on both the open source models that anybody can use, as well as the frontier closed models here in the US.
Yeah, I have to dig more into the OpenAI, what they've announced, but it feels heavily like noise because their whole business model is around the post training to continue to progress their frontier models, with this whole notion of racing to artificial superintelligence in the competition with Anthropic in China. And it feels like also noise and posturing because this whole business model is predicated on being able to contain and manage these environments so they can continue to train them. And so it's almost like if that's, I haven't looked into it, but if your explanation is the right one, that what they're saying is them almost ceding the race if they're not going to continue to post train. So it feels like there's something off there with what they're saying. I like the whole idea is they're throwing caution to the wind in the sense of continuing the race because of the game theory that if they don't figure this out, Anthropic is, because the real race is how do you get to a level of intelligence that makes you the dominant player and winner. So it's going to be interesting nonetheless to see how this plays. And then just on the open source stuff, I mean, I think that cat's out of the bag and that'll continue to be good for consumers, less because they're going to use it. I think of it of like self custody in try to run your own model, independent if you can run it on your laptop, just being able to connect and create the user experience that a harness like Claude or OpenAI or Grokbot provide is so far fetched from I think most people using it. But the other side still is valid that it lowers the cost because there will be other harnesses that use it. You have OpenRouter getting acquired by Open Stripe. There'll be firms building on OpenRouter. Like I don't know if Perplexity uses OpenRouter. They have their own version of routing their inference and inquiries, but that does lower the price for a lot of this, which I think also increases the token usage of the frontier labs, which theoretically would allow for them to have at least the capex to post train. But it'll be interesting to navigate to see like the actual politics and policies on if they really believe it's a security gap that they can't actually post train anymore.
So was it signal or noise?
I think it's noise.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I've not too much time here. I also don't have probably the best opinions on the matter, but I think what is interesting on out of these two topics is Liam, the first one here, just in terms of taking a look at these open source, which can be run locally versus the closed source models and how those frontier models are comparing to one another. I actually haven't downloaded Qwen or any open source yet, and so I feel like I'm not the best suited to speak on the topic, but I do think it's a big economic story, and Liam, you kind of hinted at it where these companies, OpenAI, Anthropic, there's a lot riding on these valuations. I know Anthropic has posted some really strong numbers that we spoke about earlier this week, and they're also eyeing an IPO later this year. And so we'll just be continuing to monitor from a couple of different angles, open versus close, and then US versus China, because there is a lot riding on, we talk about the debt financing, the CapEx build out. There's a lot riding on these valuations. So that's the interest that I have in all this. So on to the next topic here, we can talk about Moderna. You can pull that one up, Nick. Cancer vaccine from Moderna. Merck shows promises in late-stage trial. Both stocks soar. Nick asked us if we bought any call options. Nick, I don't do that, just for the record. I don't necessarily have the time, nor am I a sophisticated trader. I stick to saving in Bitcoin to answer your question here. But you can see the key points from this article. An experimental personalized cancer vaccine from Merck and Moderna showed positive initial results in its first ever later stage trial. The combination regimen met the main study goal of significantly extending the time patients lived without their melanoma returning, compared with Keytruda alone, and also reduced the risk of cancer spreading to distant parts of the body. The initial data suggests that the combo could serve as a new treatment option for the deadliest form of skin cancer and validate a new personalized treatment approach. Signal or noise? Who wants to take the first crack here?
I mean, at the risk of getting canceled, I think this is at face value having to get into a lot of noise, specifically coming from a firm, Moderna, because they have a very sketchy history of almost going bankrupt, and then they, luckily or not luckily, were connected to the government to roll out vaccines that potentially caused a lot of people to have cancer. And so now they naturally have this version with this AI boom and optics that they've used AI because I think that's a core component of what's been floated around to come up with this. So I think that there's a lot you can go down a rabbit hole as it relates to health, food, vaccines, other aspects of society that have increased cancer. And now this is that natural version of medicine that creates a problem, provides you a solution, makes money from it. I think Ozempic's a great example that we've seen firsthand where people have gotten insanely obese, and rather than educate on health and fitness, they provide you this thing that costs a lot of money. And that thing's also been reported to cause a lot of issues. So that's my take. I don't have to look deep, but from when I see Moderna and solutions, I think of what happened post-COVID, and there's probably a lot more behind the scenes of a CNBC article.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. And, I'm not a big Moderna fan, but I am going to go with this is the directionally signal because I think that there is just so much that all of these labs have in terms of data research and the capabilities of AI are increasing exponentially. And so, whether it's one of these types of firms or just even people that have, that's I think about that story of that guy who helped save his dog from having cancer and not have to give put him down a few months ago. They came out because he was able to use open models to actually figure out a cure for it. And so I think directionally, this is definitely a signal of just the ability that people can get healthier and either just find treatments, use preventative measures, and find better drug discovery after the fact.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I could see it cutting both ways, partially signal, partially noise. I do think the signal, not to repeat what Liam said, so that I agree with what you said, Liam. Like there's signal in the fact of how technology is developing and pushing the frontier, not only for the things that we typically talk about, but also as it relates to healthcare and medicine and biotech. So there's definitely some signal there. But then I also do think it's incredibly noisy just because Michael, that you guys kind of took both sides of it, and I agree with both of it. I saw some interesting takes yesterday in reaction to this news about people saying something to the effect of like these advancements in science are going to fix the deficit problem that this country has. And like that to me just blew my mind because that's obviously so untrue. But I know a lot of people like to talk about how much money is spent in this country on the healthcare system, which is totally egregious. And right, it's a mix of just the amount of middlemen, administrators in the system. It's a mix of course, the incentive skewing for higher drug prices, insurance premiums, etc. And then the fact that this country is so incredibly sick. And so, yeah, I think the noise component of this is the fact that we're going to see a lot of different things that are painted solutions like this. But the underlying story is that, yeah, people, they want to take, when we think about the incentives of it all, people just want the easy fix here. And so rather than trying to fix anything about how they live or their environment, let's just pay some more money to Moderna, a company that really, I'm sure, has your best interest in mind. All right, last topic to round it out. Michael, we did want to get an update on how your meeting went with Mayor Mamdani yesterday, if you're willing to share. But this story here is about the grocery stores in New York, the money loop. And so, got the first tweet here. Lead official for Mayor Mamdani's New York City groceries tell me city may give grants to local grocers fearing competition from city-run stores. Policies and programs, grants, incentives that come alongside these grocery stores to support other local independent businesses. And then the quote tweet here is using tax dollars to help businesses affected by government grocery stores funded by tax dollars. Profoundly idiotic with zero grounding in economics or reality, the socialist way. Who likes it? Who likes this one? Signal or noise?
My favorite thing about all of this is we've been so conditioned to even try to look at this somewhat seriously and break down. And the best way to think about it is the broken window fallacy. I think it's Henry Hazlitt has a book called Principles of Economics. It's basically a very basic premise of like how society, scarcity works, etc. And there's like 10 layers of why this is complete noise from a policy perspective to the ramifications. And if anybody wants to just get directly to that point, listen to Peter St. Onge's discussion this week on this exact topic, because he breaks down for multiple functions of A, it's your tax dollars that are paying for this. So it's some of the money's coming somewhere. Two, it drastically hurts all the other third parties. There's unintended consequences for this exact reason, because now if people are going there, well, it's like, what are the goods being sold? And then other places, if they're getting hurt that are already at thin margins, are they going out of business, or are they lowering the quality of their services? And you can continue down this like trajectory of like it just manipulates and distorts everything else post just this one policy. And I think at face value, even if we're like, yeah, this doesn't make sense, but it won't be too bad, it's like very consequential for what happens. And this just goes back to, this is the more visceral, like closer thing than like when we talk about, I hate talking about the debt because it's so ephemeral and out there, but it's the same concept, whether it's interest rates, the debt, or changing the cost of goods and services and manipulate them. When you distort any form of commodity, you just have all these unintended consequences that have already been proven and shown around policies like this that we're going to have to replay and relive. And it's crazy that we're talking about it, and this is like things that people are voting for and are excited about, and probably think they're progressive. That the New York's like leading here.
Yeah, I remember during COVID when there were essentially no rules about like stealing small items. You could essentially do that and nobody would get prosecuted or anything. There was one story, and I was in Washington, D.C. for a moment, and there was essentially somebody who had just stolen a bunch of like toothbrushes and all of that stuff from CVS and was just selling it right outside. And it was obviously stolen, and none of the cops did anything about it because it was like a petty crime, and so it's not actually a crime, etc. And so the only thing that I can think about here too is people are going to go to these grocery stores, be able to buy things for 30% cheaper with the government subsidies, and then they're just going to sell it on the streets outside of other grocery stores and be able to pocket the change. And it just doesn't make any sort of sense why people are going to do it, because eventually the market will find a clearing price, and essentially our capital is just being used to subsidize it. And so this is complete noise, but it's almost like the entire economy is going more towards noise. So it's like a little bit of signal in there too.
In centralization around the subsidy, because if you get closer to the government, who doesn't want that? Sorry, Jackson. One
Yeah.
other thing is, so in New York, and it's like astonishing going into CVS. Literally, more of the store is behind bars than in front of bars. Like you can't get toothpaste or
I don't even go there anymore. Yeah.
jerky. You can't get anything without
Nothing.
calling somebody. And I'm like, what is going on here? I mean, I got like some of the higher end stuff. It makes sense, but like toothpaste is behind the deal.
I live there and I
That's
literally
crazy.
don't go anymore. I have to get everything from Amazon because I can't wait 20 minutes to have somebody come around each time.
Yeah, and you're bothering them too, Liam. You're bothering them
I
to open
know.
the case.
Bothering them by trying to buy something.
Yeah, I mean, what a mess. It's obviously the big noise story here. But, I mean, what can you say? This is just so predictable, right? You have so much confusion about where this inflation is coming from. Why can't I afford groceries? Why can't I do this and that? Obviously, when you promise free stuff, a lot of people like the sound of that. And then there's a ton of ramifications that are not fully thought through or considered. And yeah, we'll just have to see how this plays out. Liam can report every week on the ground just how this ends up going. Liam, maybe you should go shop at these grocery stores and let us know what the experience is like as a customer.
Maybe I will, honestly. And yeah, I'll definitely report back. I'll take some videos of it too. And yeah, I mean, we're gonna be on the maybe we'll go on as a group field trip too, because I know we have a
I
happy hour coming up in New York next week too, and Jackson may be giving out some free stuff as well.
I don't think we'll do that, but I do appreciate you, uh, putting yourself out there to start the new investigative journalism show that you'll do weekly around New York to talk about policies around economics. So expect that to be coming from On-Ramp Media. Will be
Another show.
Not enough pods.
Oh, all right. All right. Well, Michael, how do we do on time? Are
we
you
did
pleased?
great, Jackson. What's happening next week? Is somebody bringing you ground beef?
Next week. Oh, yes. So for anyone who wants to join us, we're going to be getting together in Manhattan. We're going to be meeting at Pub Key on Wednesday, August 26th at 5:30 Eastern. Would love for you to join us. We have shared links on all of our socials at this point. We can also make it a point to share the link, Nick, below the stream here to sign up. Would be great to meet others in person. It is probably the best part about working in the industry is getting to meet others who are interested in Bitcoin, are paying attention, and if you enjoy this content, then I'm sure we'll get along great. And then we also have a virtual roundtable for those of you who are not in the area. If you'd like to join that, that'll also take place 4 p.m. August 26th, Wednesday. Love to have you there. Any parting thoughts, Michael, Liam?
Will be a fun.
Aren't we doing the lightning round?
We can do it.
Michael always leaves at the lightning round now.
Well, I gotta go, but man, lightning round. There's a lot of pods. I think I don't really got anything. I got too many. I guess the Stripe shareholder letter is worth reading. I think that would be my signal piece of content. It's only a few pages, but I think they're really a firm that's trying to win, and I think important that you have to be nimble in this new environment, and it really looks like they're not trying to just sit back and lose market share, but try to play for this new world we're heading into with their open router acquisition on the backs of that was part of the genesis of that shareholder letter.
Agreed. That was worth watching. I'll go next. Mine is from our friend of the show, Karen Bass, mayor of LA. She put a tweet out that said, "When you donate to our campaign, every time you donate $5, the city will match 6 to 1." This is city taxpayer funded from the city of LA, supporting the existing mayor. And it's just and people may say, okay, well, this is just LA and, why should I care? But in the end, the governments and states federally will bail out these cities and states which continue to run deficits and spend money in poor ways. So it is my signal of the week.
Nice. I love that. So my lightning round would be this report here, this research report. AI debt failure will prompt another wave of Fed bailouts. I have not had the chance to read it yet. It's about a 20-page report, but I have read other publications from Dan Oliver in the past, and I have enjoyed it. I think it's very well thought out, especially in the sea of AI slop. And so it's always good once in a while to do some long form reading. If you consider reading 20-page research long form, I would consider that to be the case in this day and age. So this is on my docket to check out over the weekend, and figured I'd share it with the group here as well. All right, well,
Wonderful.
Liam,
Thanks, Jackson.
it seems that we always wrap up just the two of us here. And producer Nick, thank you for running a smooth ship today. We appreciate that.
Thanks, guys.
All right, adios.